Hello and welcome back to the AGF Design Studio channel. My name's Lana, I'm a freelance lettering artist and designer, and today's video is going to be a big one. I've got 100 plus Adobe Fresco tips coming straight for you. So if you want a little refresher, want to learn some new things about Adobe Fresco and some features that you may have missed out on, this is the video for you. This video was inspired by Art with Flow's 100 Procreate Tips video, which I'll link in the description box below. All right. Let's dive in and start that counter. So, by hitting select here, you can select multiple files at once. Once they're selected, they can be moved into folders by hitting Move To at the bottom and selecting the corresponding folder. You can also create new folders at any time by hitting New Folder and naming it. Any of your existing folders or files can be renamed by hitting the three-dot icon and selecting Rename. If you don't like the view of your files in your Files section, you can go to this icon and switch from a grid view to a list view and back just by tapping. Over here, you can organize your files by date or by name and list them in ascending or descending order by tapping this arrow. If you want to stay up on the newest and latest features in the app, you can go to the New and Upcoming Features section by hitting View and checking out what's new. Here, they'll tell you what's coming soon to the app. You can also suggest features in this section as well by hitting Suggest Features. If you accidentally delete a file, you can go back to your deleted section and hit Restore to bring it back. If you are in your deleted section and you hit Permanently Delete, that file will be gone for good, so be careful. Want to go back through the versions of a file that you've been working on? If you go to the three-dot icon and hit View Version History, you can see all the different iterations of the file listed by date. You can mark versions that you want to save, but note that versions will be expired after 30 days. In the Discover tab, you can check out live streams for people who are working in Fresco on Behance. Under the Learn tab, you can check out tutorials from inside the Fresco app, organize them by specific topic, and check out the YouTube tutorials from the Adobe playlist on YouTube. Fresco files that you create are also Adobe Photoshop files, so you will see them in Photoshop as well on the desktop and on your iPad. You can import Photoshop files or legacy sketch and draw projects. Create your own custom size of your document or go through the pre-configured sections to find common formats and sizes. By tapping the small arrow here next to any of these, you can switch the orientation from portrait to landscape and back. You can also use the information from any of these and select New Size from Format, take those dimensions, and start making your own tweaks like to the PPI and to the background. If you ever want to save the size for later, select Save This Size and rename it. Adobe Fresco has 3 brush types: Pixel, Live, and Vector. Live brushes are categorized into watercolor and oil. Also, as a note, these are still considered pixel-based brushes. If you go to the bottom and tap this icon, you can adjust the brush settings of any of your brushes and test them in the box here to see the results. If you ever want to revert back to the original version of your brush, you can tap this arrow and it will reset completely. Depending on your brush, when you go into your brush settings, you will see a box that you can check called Color Dynamics. This will turn your brush into a multicolor stroke. You can always add new brushes by going to Add Brushes and hitting Discover New Brushes. This will keep you up to date with all of the latest brush packs or brush packs that you haven't even added yet. Once you're ready, simply hit Add and you're ready to go. Every time you add a new brush pack, you can find it in your Library Brushes section. Every season, a new brush pack is added for download for Fresco and Photoshop users. Your tool menus that have this gray bar at the top can be moved around and rearranged wherever you like them. Wherever you move them on screen is where you'll find them in the future. Hitting these dual arrows in the top right hand of your screen will give you a full screen view of your canvas, keeping it front and center with only the active tool being visible. Any tools that you see with a small black arrow in the corner can be pressed and held to expand for more options. Importing photos into the app will automatically create a color palette that you can find by tapping your color chip. It'll have the same name as the image that you imported. You also have the option of hitting the three-dot icon and deleting the color palette. If you don't want this to happen every time you import a photo, you can simply go to your settings, go to App Settings, under General, untoggle Auto Create Color Palette. Watercolor brushes and oil brushes look really realistic and convincing in the Adobe Fresco app, thank you to the power of Adobe Sensei. When using watercolor brushes, you do have other options like increasing your water flow. You can also tap your layer that you've used watercolor brushes on and hit dry layer to continue adding effects more convincingly. When using the fill tool, you have the option of filling in pixel or vector. That's because Adobe Fresco uses both pixel and vector brushes. So you'll have this option every time you use fill. You can use the selection tools to isolate parts of your image and move them around. The lasso tool will give you more free-form control, but you also have pre-configured options like ellipses and rectangles. By hitting more after you've made any selection, you can still transform that individual selection and use your transform settings on that selection. The shapes tool can be used to add things to your compositions. By hitting the plus sign icon here, you can discover new shapes and add them to Adobe Fresco as well. With certain brushes, you have multicolor brush options. By hitting your color chip and going to the Fresco Colors section, you can go to your multicolor swatches and enjoy these different kinds of effects that they can give you. Note that these are only available with certain pixel brushes. This is not a function of the vector brushes. Under the Transform tool, you have different options for moving around your artwork, skewing, distorting, and using perspective shifts to make transformations to your work. Also under the Transform tool, you have liquify options that you might recognize from Photoshop. You can create a new layer by hitting the plus sign icon here. You can tap and hold it to select what kind of layer you'd like to create. You'll notice that pixel layers have a different icon from vector layers, which is how you'll be able to tell them apart. Layers can be held and grouped together. You can also tap them again and hit ungroup to release them. You also have the option of using the touch shortcut to achieve multiple layer selection. This icon will give you clipping mask. Tapping it again will revert it back to a non-clipping mask. Adding adjustment layers let you drastically change the color settings, color ranges instantly and contain it to this one layer. There are also other adjustment layer options that you can choose from. Tap a layer once and have all your options available. You can duplicate layers, copy layers, and cut layers. Tapping the eye will toggle the visibility of any layer on or off. Setting any of your layers as a reference layer will allow you to use the information from that layer without having the pixels directly selected. References can also be released afterwards. You can also load the pixels as a selection and use that information in a similar way. Under Precision, turn on Rotation Snapping to be able to use your Transform tool and have it snap at the degree that you select. You can also have alignment guides, which will help you with blue guidelines to let you know when your work is centered. You can also turn on grids and customize them in opacity and color and spacing. You can also use a perspective grid to create 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point perspective. You can also edit your vanishing points and move them around The colors of these can also be customized to your liking. Perspective grids can also be created from images that can be imported into the document and can be derived from any specific layer or the document as a whole. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can use your ruler tool to get nice straight lines. Rotating is as simple as using 2 fingers, and then drawing your line however you like. Pressing and holding will reveal the rest of your drawing aids, including circles, squares, and polygons. The sides of your polygon can be increased and decreased. You can pull from the corners and adjust your drawing aids to your liking, and then use them for easy tracing. Drawing aids can also be filled on the inside or outside. Under your document settings, if you ever want to change the size of your canvas, you can do that by selecting Change and making your adjustments. This is also where you can flip and rotate your canvas. With Artboard Preview untoggled, you can place things outside of your canvas and have them rest on the outside of your artboard. There are 2 different types of animation in Adobe Fresco: path motion and frame by frame. You can activate them in the bottom right-hand corner. Pro tip: layers with motion enabled cannot have motion removed from them once you've started to add to your timeline. So I would always duplicate my layer before adding motion to it. Clipping masks themselves can also have animation added. You can take any layer from your document, copy it, and paste it as a frame into your motion timeline. You can choose if you want to transform a single frame or all of your frames at once. Going to your settings and toggling on onion skin will allow you to view previous frames in your animation. You'll notice it by having a little ghosted version of those previous frames, and you can adjust the opacity of how well you can see those previous frames and how many frames you can see. Path motion is as simple as tapping path and drawing a path on your screen. As you can see, frame by frame and path animation can be added to the same layer. Path effects like adding multiples to a path, scattering, growing and shrinking, and more can all be adjusted in your layer properties once your path has been drawn. You can also toggle align to path to have your object follow your path precisely as it travels. If you don't like the path you've drawn, you can always just hit the X. Multiple paths can also be drawn on your canvas at once, and they'll just add another version of the object that you drew on that layer. Drawing aids can also be used to create precise paths in whatever shape of the drawing aid you like. You can also adjust the speed that you've drawn and have it follow that exact way that you drew it in the speed that you drew it. Otherwise, you can use the uniform speed setting if you want everything to flow in one uniform way. Increasing your frames will make your animation go faster, while decreasing it will make it go slower. You can tap the top of your file name to rename it. You can also force save your document at any time by hitting Save Now. Quickly exporting your file is as simple as hitting this icon and selecting Quick Export. Quick Export allows you to quickly export your work in the format that you've chosen. To change your Quick Export format, you can go to your settings under General and export it to the file that you prefer. When exporting documents with motion enabled, you'll notice a special motion section that'll give you the formats that you need for exporting. You also have the option to customize your time-lapse export. As long as your video is over 30 seconds long, you can customize the duration of your export. You also have the option to directly live stream from the Adobe Fresco app to your Behance profile. Files can be sent and shared with collaborators by adding their email address here. You can also add comments to your document for your collaborators to see. You can also create patterns using Adobe Capture and the objects from your Adobe Fresco document. As you're creating, you also have the option of using the touch shortcut, tapping and holding, to change that brush that you were using for drawing into an eraser. Releasing it will turn it back into the brush. Tapping multiple times will hold this effect in place. Spread 2 fingers apart to zoom in, pinch to zoom out. 2-finger tap to undo, 3-finger tap to redo. You can also use these arrows at the top of the screen. When using vector brushes and crossing paths, tapping and dragging out to the corner will allow you to trim your vector paths, cutting off any excess from the overlap. A full overview of the touch shortcut's abilities can be found at this question mark and selecting touch shortcut. A full overview of the gestures can also be found under this section. Tapping and holding on your screen will allow you to activate your eyedropper tool and isolate the colors and send them directly to your color chip. If you ever get stuck in the app, you can hit this icon and go to Take the Tour. It'll bring you through to a guided Adobe Fresco tour. Under your account profile, you can select your tutorial level, so you can customize it to your current skill level. Maybe you're new to drawing, new to digital tools, or just new to Fresco, or maybe you find yourself very comfortable. It'll adjust the tutorials and tips that it shares with you to your specifications of your skills. If you're ever not sure of which version of the app you're working in, you can find this information under the About section, under App Settings. And it'll give you the latest information on the newest features. You can report bugs directly within the app if you find things are not behaving typically or as you expect. So, have you learned anything new? Let me know in a comment below. Also, give this video a like if it helped you out, if you enjoyed it, and share it with a friend who's learning Adobe Fresco. Remember, Adobe Fresco is a completely free app, so check it out in the description box below. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!